welcome to Robinson Hall Experts Talk. My name's Laura Saunders, Marketing and PR Manager at Robinson Hall, and today is the 30th of October, and we are going to be discussing the commercial market and property management. I have David Watling and Mike Shears with me. David Watling is Head of Commercial. David's been involved in all aspects of commercial property for over 30 years. He has grown and strengthened our expanding commercial property department and specialises in valuations, development advice, lease renewals, rent reviews and dilapidations. Mike Shears is Senior Commercial Surveyor. Mike joined us in June this year, continuing a long-established career approaching 30 years in the commercial property surveying sector. So welcome, David and Mike. Mike, this is your first Robinson Hall podcast. So tell me a little bit more about yourself, because obviously you joined the company back in June.
Yes, good morning. Yes, I joined Robinson Hall in June, and as stated, I've had a career in commercial property and surveying for probably approximately 30 years.
Yeah.
My main experience recently for the past 10 to 12 years has been in property management. So I joined to try and help expand the property management offering at Robinson Hall.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got a great deal of experience in the professional sector, rent reviews and lease renewals. And I also like to help clients manage their assets to get the maximum out of them, which I feel is something that we can do through our property management services.
Great. Excellent. So how is the commercial market currently?
Good morning, Laura. Yes, of course. The market, I would say, at the moment is in a state of flux, whereby people are tending to sit on their hands rather than make decisions on relocating, expanding or downsizing, for example. Probably as a result of economic uncertainty in the country. There's a budget coming up very soon.
Yeah.
People are just waiting to see what happens primarily. In terms of the market generally, the retail sector is, as it has been for some years now, rather slow. We are letting smaller retail units, especially units where tenants can benefit from small business rates relief, for example. Shorter term leases tend to be the order of the day, 3 years, perhaps even with a break after 18 months or 2 years. But smaller units are letting reasonably well at the moment. But location, as has always been the case, is perhaps of prime importance. The office sector is, I would say, very slow at the moment. Good quality offices are letting, and that's perhaps always been the case, but we're finding that quality is of prime importance rather than necessarily rental levels at the moment. The one sector that has maintained pretty good demand now for many years is storage units and industrial units. Whilst we are finding that rents have perhaps plateaued over recent time, which in turn means capital values have plateaued also, there is still strong activity in that market.
Okay. Mike, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I think we've also have had quite a bit of success recently with offering freehold properties. We've had two or three smaller freehold properties, sort of sub £1 million size bracket, which we've been able to market. We've had strong demand. A lot of that's coming from, I would say, small investor developer companies, and we've got 2 or 3 sales going through at the moment, which is encouraging. Mainly conversion to residential from commercial. There seems to be demand there, so there are still opportunities for people who own property if they're exiting.
Okay. So what prices are we seeing from commercial sales and lettings?
As I alluded to earlier, Laura, I think we're seeing that values have plateaued over recent time. I wouldn't say they've fallen, but they're certainly not increasing at the moment. It's difficult, obviously, to be specific in terms of prices per square metre or whatever, but the one sector that has held firm is the industrial and storage sector. I would say good quality offices, the values have perhaps held, and they may even have marginally increased. But for poorer quality offices and the retail sector generally, I would say values are very static.
Okay. And are there any market predictions for the future?
Well, I think we've got to be slightly cautious, as David has talked about. We feel that people are waiting for the budget. And I think making a prediction at the moment would probably be dangerous to try to encourage people. We don't want to give misinformation. As David has said, we do feel that the market is holding itself at current levels, and again, I would echo that retail does still seem to be probably the one sector that is struggling, especially where you've got retail units where they don't have business rates relief. That is a more difficult sector.
Then obviously you're going to end up with a high street with loads of empty shops. So one would hope that something's going to have to change.
Yeah, but as we've seen in Bedford, for example, the local authority, the council, have been proactive in acquiring properties with a view to then perhaps splitting some of the larger Debenhams, for example, that closed in Bedford recently, splitting it into smaller units to try and encourage new start-up businesses to come into the town centre.
Yeah.
It is difficult, as Mike suggested. We're hoping there'll be more stability next year, and I think inflation could well start to fall next year as interest rates perhaps stabilise and decrease slightly. I mean, if you've got a property that perhaps is in need of a bit of TLC and is vacant at the moment, it's always difficult to say spend money on it, but I think you should actually actively seek to improve the property now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. I'm out there showing properties. Presentation to me is absolute key. We may go on to talk about that under the guise of property management, but a well-maintained property, a well-presented property, a well-maintained and a well-maintained estate, I believe, is absolutely key to being able to let your property or sell your property, but let your property in a market where demand is fluctuates. So yeah, presentation absolutely, and I think offering a property in poor, dilapidated condition. I have first-hand experience of viewings where I meet people, they walk in, they walk out. So I would encourage certainly all landlords who've got property to make sure it is presented property. I don't think you have to make it gold plated, but you have to present it clean, tidy.
Yeah, new carpet. Yeah, etc.
Yeah.
I guess if there is a bit of a lull where you're like, I'll sit tight, wait and see what the budget has to offer and what changes are going to possibly take place at the end of this month, or we're not actually in November yet, at the end of November. Now's a good time to do that, isn't it? Because it might take you a couple of weeks, up to a month.
I think you should also look at the energy performance certificate rating as well. Legislation emerging at legislation 2027, where the ratings will change potentially unless the government decide otherwise in the interim. And I'm finding that more and more inquirers are looking at the energy performance certificate. Perhaps we weren't a year or two ago, and looking for it to be a D rating now rather than a D or an E, to basically protect themselves going forward.
Are we aware of when that change is going to take place?
And it should be a C, and then 2030 it should be a B. But it's on the radar of a number of tenants now. And existing tenants who are looking to renew, they're looking to achieve a better energy performance certificate rating if they can, which is obviously the landlord's responsibility rather than the tenants.
Yeah, and I guess if you're making improvements, you might as well consider that when you're making them. Yeah. Because otherwise you might have to put something new in and then take it out and put something else in that kind of complies with the energy performance.
It can be achieved relatively easily.
Yeah.
In most cases, it's lighting, it's definitely heating. Gas
is bad news. Electricity is more expensive, but it's better news because in terms of the assessment.
There's renewables. So I think we've had experience of advising clients in this area where we've looked at units, and whether be it to let, to relet, or a lease renewal, where we've been able to advise, how to achieve a grade C.
Yeah.
We're getting draft reports now from energy assessors rather than asking them to prepare the final report from day one, because we want to know what we may have to do or our client may have to do to achieve a better rating.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So tell me about our property management offering for commercial lettings.
We offer a full property management service, so we will take full responsibility for a property or an estate, or a group of properties. So we can collect rent. We can advise in respect of buildings insurance for the estate, and perhaps most significantly, we can manage a service charge. Where you've got common parts and shared facilities and so on and so forth, and I think that's where I think we can add a lot of value to the property owner. There's a lot more compliance issues these days when it comes to property management. So obviously, we as surveyors, we need to deal with all the compliance issues for clients. What I think it does do is it means that you've got a properly ordered estate that's well managed, as we've talked about, well presented. So the first impression of somebody coming to the estate, perhaps if there's let's say it's a parade of shops where there might be a shop to let, somebody coming to the estate needs to know, or needs to be able to perceive that it's well managed. So I think first and foremost, that's how it's presented physically, that everything's in order. And it does come down to the minutiae. It's no potholes in the roads, nicely marked car parking spaces, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Often with managed properties, there's physically shared parts. So we'll look after external decorations, external maintenance. It could be anything from gutters to roof to, as we said, car parking spaces.
Yeah.
So I'm a great believer in, if you've got a well managed estate, it will be obvious.
Yeah.
To the observer that it's a well managed estate, and I genuinely believe that actually adds value to the client.
It attracts better tenants.
Better tenants. It retains tenants. It means that you can also look to when you've got lease renewals, you retain your current tenant profile, and you can enhance your rents. So we've got examples of that where perhaps we've taken on estates from landlords who have been managing it themselves.
Yeah.
Initially, I have to say it's hard work. There's a lot of issues for us to plough through, work through. We often have to have discussions with tenants as to why there might be a year where the service charge is a little bit higher than others. But that's a conversation that we're comfortable to have, and our goal is always to manage an estate to the highest possible standards, and I think our job is to raise the standard of management so that it functions as it should,
and in turn enhances the asset.
Yeah.
So enhancing the asset is I think our is the byproduct of good property management.
So you mentioned that you've had clients that have obviously managed the property themselves, and then we've taken it on. What prompted them to change their mind from managing it themselves?
I suspect the fact is that they were probably getting a feedback from their tenants that things weren't right.
Right.
My experience is that tenants expect a property to be well managed, and indeed when you're letting to a new tenant coming into a new estate, let's say I'm picking a hypothetical example, let's say there's an office block where there's 1 out of 5 suites is available to let. That incoming tenant is going to expect to have knowledge of how the estate is run, what they've got to pay, who does what happens if a window breaks, what happens if if who cleans the common parts.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not able to offer a clear answer to an incoming tenant, they probably won't take the property.
Okay.
There are other alternatives. So I think if it's very frustrating, I think, for a landlord if you think you've let a property and then you instruct solicitors and then you can't demonstrate that the property is well managed. That tenant may well go elsewhere.
And I guess to managing a property, it's probably more time consuming, perhaps, than some of our landlords realise.
Yes, it is. As we're finding when we take on the management on occasion. I'm aware of an example recently whereby a client obtained proper legal advice when they let a block of various storage units on a development. They were managing it in-house. The leases came to an end, and they just allowed the tenants to remain in occupation. The original leases were contracted out of the Landlord and Tenant Act, which meant that the landlord could obtain possession if they required. But they allowed these leases to run on for a number of years and then actually wanted vacant possession to develop the site residentially, I believe. But they failed to realise that if you allow a tenant to remain in occupation post a contracted out lease coming to its conclusion, that the tenants obtain the benefit of security of tenure. And this has bitten them quite hard, purely because they decided to do their own in-house management, not take professional advice from either a surveyor or a solicitor at the appropriate time.
Okay. So it's not just about making sure your property is compliant, as Mike's alluded to. It's actually the legalities as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's talked about compliance with health and safety,
Yeah.
asbestos.
I mean, I would call that sort of your leasehold, your management of the leases, and that's the crossover to my mind between property management and asset management. But as property managers, if we're collecting rent, we would never collect a rent beyond the expiry of a lease that's contracted out.
Yeah.
Because we know as property professionals that creates a different statutory basis for a tenant, as David's alluded to, and that to my mind that's a real problem for if you allow that to happen, you've created a real problem for yourself.
I think on reflection, Mike, we've come across it a few times
We
in the
have,
last month or two.
Yeah,
haven't we?
it can be less sort of property orientated landlords, but it still creates exactly the same situation, and then there's a bigger problem to undo. If when we manage property, as I've said, we would know when a lease ends.
Yeah.
And we would always advise that you put again a contracted out of the Landlord and Tenant Act lease. We would always advise that a new lease must be put in place before the end at the end of that contractual term. Otherwise, you're creating a problem.
Yeah.
You're not just kicking the can down the road. You're actually creating a fairly serious problem.
Because I guess the same would apply whether it was like industrial units or an office or retail or
commercial.
Yeah.
And license as well. There are certain clients that create licenses that should be 12 months or less. They allow them to continue, and that then becomes a contracted 54 Act lease.
Yeah, it's actually one of the very first things you learn at surveying school, isn't it? It really is. And David and I can probably quote the case law. That's how long we've been in the industry.
So I guess the message of the day is don't try and do it yourselves. If you use us to manage your property, we'll take care of everything for you. What sets us apart from our competitors?
I think professionalism within Robinson Hall, the various divisions that we have within the business. I mean, we have building surveyors that can deal with dilapidations. We have a planning team in-house that can deal with any planning issues you have. We've got a drawing office that can do lease plans. We cover all bases, if you like, within the Robinson and Hall umbrella.
Yeah, so I guess from a landlord or seller's perspective, it makes it far smoother when it comes to getting your property ready to
You
fill
have
or
one point
let.
of contact, and that
Yeah.
contact can act as a conduit to ensure that everything's done for you.
And we can use our colleagues to get their expertise.
Yeah.
Great. Is there anything else to add before we conclude?
I would just like to say that we're here, we're available to talk to you about your property needs, whether they're property management, valuation, commercial property agency, rent reviews, lease renewals. We're here, and please do feel free to contact either of us.
Great. Thank you ever so much, David and Mike.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
If you would like to contact them, please visit our website. The Meet the Team page is the best place to find all of our staff's contact details. Their phone number and email are available on there, so please contact them if you have any questions. Thank you ever so much for listening today. We've covered quite a lot. I've launched a variety of podcasts over recent months. In fact, I think it's over a year now. Have a look at our website, the podcast page. They're also available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the podcast channels. So have a flick through. There's quite a few that are relevant to commercial and planning and making changes to your properties. So there might be a couple that tick your box. Thank you for listening today, and hopefully you'll tune in again next time. Goodbye. Our podcasts are for informational purposes only and are based on the information available at the date of the recording. Listeners are responsible for how they interpret and use the information, and Robinson Hall LLP will not be responsible for any losses, damages or liabilities that may arise from a listener relying on the information given. Listeners should take advice from an appropriate professional which is tailored to their specific needs.